Imagine you're walking into a quiet gas station, just minding your own business. The sun's beating down, the air's hot, and you're just there for a quick refuel. But then, the roar of motorcycles fills the air. 3 bikers pull in. And they're not just any bikers. They're from the notorious Desert Wolves gang. They think they've found an easy target, a lone woman, just sitting on her bike. But what they don't know is that this woman, she's not just another biker in the crowd. She's Rachel Morrison, a former Navy SEAL, one of the deadliest combat veterans in U.S. military history. And right here, in this small, quiet town, things are about to go from 0 to 100 real quick. What happens next will change everything for Shadow Creek. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. But before we get into all the action, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. You won't want to miss the next chapter, because I promise you, it's about to get wild. So, Rachel Morrison rolls into Johnson's gas station in Shadow Creek, Arizona, hoping for a moment of peace. She's got her Kawasaki Ninja, and she's just here to get a little quiet time, clear her mind. But as she pulls in, her eyes are scanning the area with military precision. It's second nature to her now, a habit from years of special operations. Nothing escapes her notice. She sees the dust kicked up by the old trucks parked outside, the busted security camera above, and the multiple routes she could take to get out of here in a hurry. If she needed to, it's all instinct. What Rachel doesn't know is that her quick stop at this gas station is about to set off a storm. And in just a few moments, her world will get a whole lot more complicated. Then, the rumble of engines breaks the quiet. The Desert Wolves roll in, led by Marcus Blade Rodriguez. The gang's got a reputation, and they don't hide it. The bikers are loud, brash, and their presence sends a wave of intimidation over the otherwise peaceful gas station. But Rachel, she's calm. Her hands don't shake. Her eyes are sharp. She's analyzing everything, noting the dangerous potential in this encounter. But she's not flinching, not even for a second. With every biker that steps off their motorcycle, Rachel knows she's about to find out just how much of a threat these men really are. This isn't just a random encounter. The bikers think they've got the upper hand. But Rachel's got something they didn't count on: experience. She's ready. She's trained for moments like this. And they're about to find out just how dangerous it is to mess with the wrong person in the wrong place. So, what happens next? Does Rachel back down? Does she walk away? Or does she show these bikers exactly who they're dealing with? Stay tuned. Things are about to get intense. And the town of Shadow Creek will never be the same again. The bikers pull in, their engines roaring with purpose, shaking the quiet air of the gas station. Blade, their leader, steps off his bike with a smirk that suggests he thinks he's about to have some fun. His eyes land on Rachel, sizing her up. "What's a girl like you doing out here alone?" he sneers, clearly trying to provoke her. The Desert Wolves surround her like wolves closing in on prey, each one thinking they found an easy target. They assume she's just another biker in over her head. But Rachel, standing tall and calm, doesn't flinch. Inside, her training is already kicking in. This is nothing new for her. Blade tries to get under her skin with insults, mocking her presence in the middle of nowhere. "What? You a lone ranger now? Think you're tough all by yourself?" His voice is rough, his words sharp. But Rachel stands firm. She doesn't show fear. Not a hint of it. She knows exactly how to handle men like him. Still, she keeps her composure, not giving them the satisfaction of seeing her rattled. Her voice is low, but carries authority. "Leave. Now." It's a simple command. But the bikers laugh it off, underestimating just who they're dealing with. The tension is thick enough to cut with a knife. Blade steps closer, his voice laced with mockery. Or what? You're gonna take us all down by yourself. His gang of desert wolves laughs. But the laughter doesn't last long. Rachel's eyes narrow, her body still, but her mind is running through every possibility: escape routes, weapons, and weaknesses. She's ready for anything, just as it looks like the situation could explode. Her phone buzzes, breaking the standoff. It's Mike, an old friend and ally. His voice comes through the line, steady and urgent. Rachel, this isn't just a random gang. You need to be careful. The situation's much bigger than you think. Rachel listens, her mind racing. She looks around, taking in the details with a practiced eye. The guy called Snake has a knife strapped to his boot. Too obvious, but dangerous. Tank, the biggest of the bikers, is trying to hide a gun under his jacket, but it's not well concealed. And then there's something else. Chemical burns on one of the biker's hands. The faint smell of something more dangerous than weed fills the air. These guys aren't just petty criminals. They're part of something much darker. Her instinct tells her this is bigger than a simple intimidation attempt. She stands her ground, but now she's seeing them for what they really are, not just bikers, but players in a much larger operation. They're involved in something that could threaten more than just Shadow Creek. Rachel knows this moment is just the beginning. The bikers might think they've got the upper hand, but she's got something they didn't count on. She's a Navy SEAL, and she's not about to let them walk away thinking they've won. The clock is ticking, and she knows she's about to find out just how far these bikers will go. The silence between Rachel and the desert wolves is thick with unspoken tension. As Blade steps closer, his mocking smile fading, Rachel's calm voice slices through the stillness. Almost coldly, "You're slow. You telegraph your movements like amateurs. I know exactly how fast you can draw, how predictable you are. Your numbers might be bigger, but it won't matter. I've taken down entire squads by myself." For a moment, there's no sound, only the distant hum of the wind against the desert. Blade snorts, the arrogance still in his tone as he laughs, clearly thinking Rachel's words are nothing more than a bluff. But Rachel doesn't move an inch, her body tense with the readiness of someone who has stared down far worse. Her eyes lock with his, calculating every move he could make before he even thinks to take it. "You think I'm bluffing, Blade?" she asks, her voice steady. "Let me make this clearer." She pauses, watching his face for a crack in his confidence. The words that follow are methodical, calculated, and carry a heavy weight that stops the bikers in their tracks. "You're Marcus Blade Rodriguez, dishonorably discharged from the Marines in 2009 for misconduct. You've been running protection rackets across 3 counties. But lately, your operations have expanded. You're smuggling more than just drugs through the copper mine near town. Aren't you?" The bikers freeze, their usual swagger vanishing. Blade's smirk falters as the truth settles in, and his face grows pale, the weight of her words sinking in. The others shift uncomfortably, exchanging nervous glances. Rachel's eyes are steady, piercing, and unrelenting. Every word she speaks is another nail in their coffin. As she effortlessly peels back the layers of their criminal empire, she's not just intimidating them. She's exposing them for what they really are. Her voice drops, the calmness now chilling. "You can leave now and pretend nothing happened. I'll walk away, and you can go back to whatever little operations you've got going. Or I can break enough bones to make sure none of you ever walk into a town like this again. What's it going to be?" The tension in the air thickens, but as Rachel stands unfazed, Blade and his gang exchange wary glances. It's clear they didn't expect this. A woman who knows more than they could have guessed, who's not just capable of defending herself, but capable of dismantling their operation piece by piece. Blade, his bravado finally cracking, lets out a long, frustrated breath. His eyes narrow at Rachel, a silent promise of something more to come. His pride has been wounded, but in that moment, he knows his options are limited. Reluctantly, he gestures for his gang to back off. "We're leaving," he growls. Rachel doesn't flinch as they back away, their earlier bravado now replaced with uncertainty. "It can end here," she calls after them, her voice still unwavering. "Or you'll regret this." The sound of their bikes revving and fading into the distance signals the end of the confrontation. But Blade's eyes never leave Rachel. The message is clear. This fight is far from over. And as she watches them disappear into the horizon, she knows it won't be long before the storm comes back. As the roar of the bikes fades into the distance, Rachel stands still, watching the dust settle on the cracked pavement of Johnson's gas station. The air is thick with the tension of what just transpired, but her mind is already racing. This confrontation with the Desert Wolves was never just about a few bikers. She's made an enemy of a gang that's clearly connected to something far darker, something much larger than petty intimidation. She's just scratched the surface of a criminal network that's been silently creeping into Shadow Creek. Rachel knows that this is just the beginning. Turning, she strides back toward the small, weathered building where Joe Johnson is already waiting. The gas station owner isn't just a local businessman. Joe, a former Air Force pararescueman, knows how to read people, and right now, he's reading Rachel with a quiet understanding of someone who's been around long enough to recognize when the situation is about to spiral out of control. As she walks through the door, Joe looks at her with concern etched across his features. "Rachel," he begins, his voice low but firm. "This isn't just about bikers. It's bigger than that. The Desert Wolves, they're just a front. I've seen their type before. They're involved in something much more dangerous. Shadow Creek's been on their radar for months now, and it's not just the bikers you need to worry about." Rachel listens, her expression unreadable, but she's not surprised. In her gut, she already suspected that the threat here ran deeper than the gang's usual hustle. Her mind is already spinning through the possibilities, the players involved, and the kind of operation she's about to take on. There's a storm coming, and Shadow Creek is about to be caught in the middle of it. Joe, leaning against the counter, looks at her with a mixture of caution and respect. Things are about to escalate. You've made your mark, but now you've got a target on your back. It's not just Blade you've got to worry about. There's a whole network operating behind the scenes. And trust me, they won't stop until they've got this town in their grip. Rachel doesn't flinch. She's no stranger to escalation. She's been through wars before, both on foreign soil and on her own turf. This isn't the first time she's had to face overwhelming odds, and it won't be the last. Her resolve hardens like steel, her voice steady as she looks Joe in the eye. "I didn't come all the way out here to back down. This town's under my protection now. If the cartels and corrupt officials think they can run things here, they're wrong. I've been through hell to get to this point, and I'm not letting it all fall apart now." Joe nods, a silent agreement passing between them. He's been a protector once, a guardian of others' lives, and he can see the same fierce determination in Rachel's eyes that drove him through his own missions. "All right," Joe says, his voice calm but carrying a weight of experience. "We're in this together, but we need to be smart. You can't take them all on by yourself. The odds are stacked against us. But I've got contacts. I know people who owe me favors. We can start building something bigger, something to fight back with." Rachel looks out at the horizon, her mind already strategizing. The fight ahead isn't going to be easy, but she's ready. She knows the stakes are much higher than what anyone in Shadow Creek could have imagined. And when the real fight begins, she's not going to let anyone take control of her town. The war is coming, and Rachel Morrison will be ready for it. She's already one step ahead, and nothing will stop her now. As the sun begins to dip behind the desert landscape, casting long shadows across the gas station, Rachel stands outside, eyes scanning the horizon. Her mind is still reeling from the confrontation with the desert wolves. But there's no time to rest. As the hum of the motorcycle engines fades into the distance, the sound of an approaching police vehicle catches her attention. Rachel's instincts immediately kick into high gear. She can feel it in her gut. Something isn't right. The sheriff's truck rolls into the parking lot, its tires kicking up dust as it comes to a stop. Sheriff Cooper steps out, his imposing figure casting a long shadow on the cracked pavement. A wide grin spreads across his face. But Rachel isn't fooled. She knows that smile all too well. It's the kind of grin worn by a man who thinks he's in control of everything around him. But Rachel's learned to read the signs. And right now, she's reading nothing but danger. Sheriff Cooper approaches Rachel with a fake sense of ease. But Rachel's sharp eyes catch the subtle shift in his posture. He's nervous. She can see it in the way his hand hovers near his holster, the way his eyes dart around, as though he's making sure no one's watching. The man doesn't just have a badge. He's got something far more dangerous working for him. Everything all right here? Ms. Morrison? Cooper asks, his voice dripping with false concern. Rachel stands her ground, arms crossed, unfazed by his presence. I'm fine. Sheriff, your boys. Not so much, she replies, her tone icy. Cooper laughs, but it's forced. I heard about the altercation with the bikers. Sounds like they were trying to cause trouble. You sure you're okay? I'm fine. Rachel responds, her voice low and steady. But her mind is already piecing together the puzzle. She's seen men like him before, men who wear a badge but carry far more baggage, men whose connections run deeper than what's visible on the surface. Rachel's instincts scream at her, and she knows Cooper isn't just a lawman. He's part of the problem. Just as she's about to probe further, a familiar voice crackles through her earpiece. It's Deputy Sarah Martinez. Rachel, I've got something you need to hear, Martinez says, her voice tight with urgency. Meet me at the diner. I've got intel that'll change everything. Rachel's eyes narrow as she gives Cooper a final glance before heading to the diner. She knows this conversation with the sheriff is far from over. But now is not the time to confront him directly. When Rachel arrives at the diner, she finds Martinez sitting in a booth, a grim expression on her face. She slides a manila folder across the table, and Rachel opens it without hesitation. Inside are satellite images, notes, and a series of documents detailing the cartel's operations in the region. Martinez leans in, her voice barely a whisper. The Desert Wolves? They aren't just a gang. They're muscle for an international drug and human trafficking operation. I've been tracking their movements for months. The sheriff's in on it. Hell, half the town is. Cooper's got deputies on the payroll. Turning a blind eye to all of it, Rachel's jaw clenches as she flips through the pages. The scale of the operation is mind-boggling. Shipments moving through the old copper mines, secret routes for human trafficking, and cartel leaders meeting with local officials, including Cooper. The evidence is undeniable. This is bigger than we thought. Rachel mutters, her mind racing. We've got to expose this before it spreads further. Martinez nods. I've been trying to gather intel, but every time I get close, something happens. People disappear. Files go missing. The corruption runs deep. Rachel's gaze hardens. This isn't just about dealing with a few outlaws on motorcycles anymore. This is a full-blown war on corruption and organized crime. The stakes are higher than ever. She takes a deep breath and leans back, her mind working over every angle. All right, we fight, but we fight smart. Joe, who's been quietly listening from the corner, leans forward. I've got a few friends around here who aren't afraid to take a stand. If you need backup, we're with you. Rachel nods. She's already thinking about her next steps. To dismantle the cartel, she'll need more than just a few allies. She'll need the entire town behind her. It's time to stop hiding. Time to fight back. We expose them. We take down the desert wolves. Cooper, and everyone else who's in on this. We burn their network to the ground. She says, determination setting in. The plan is simple. Gather intelligence. Build alliances. And hit the cartel where it hurts the most. Shadow Creek may seem like a quiet, peaceful town, but Rachel knows that beneath the surface, it's a powder keg ready to explode. And she's ready to light the fuse. Get the word out. Rachel adds, anyone in this town who's tired of living in fear, they need to stand with us. We take down the cartels. We take back this town. As the meeting continues, Rachel feels a sense of purpose like never before. This battle won't be easy, but it's one she's ready for. Shadow Creek is about to change. And Rachel Morrison is the one who's going to make sure it happens. The sun was setting behind the distant mountains, casting long shadows across the town of Shadow Creek as Rachel and her team moved into position. This was it, the first real strike in their war against the cartel. And everything had to be perfect. Rachel's eyes scanned the town with practiced precision, checking every detail one more time. The traps were set. The plan in motion. She could feel the weight of the moment in the air, thick with anticipation. Joe, Martinez, and the few allies they had gathered were all in position, hidden in plain sight. The quiet town was about to become a battleground, and Rachel was leading the charge. This wasn't just about taking down the desert wolves. It was about dismantling the heart of a ruthless operation that had plagued countless towns like this one. Shadow Creek had been taken over by fear for far too long. But tonight, Rachel Morrison was ready to show the cartel that they had made the worst mistake of their lives by coming here. The cartel convoy was on the move, rumbling through the winding roads that led into town. The sound of their engines grew louder as they approached. Unaware of the storm that awaited them, Rachel stood at the edge of the street, watching with cold, calculating eyes. She didn't have to give any orders. Her team knew what to do. They'd trained for moments like this, where timing was everything and there was no room for mistakes. As the convoy rolled into Shadow Creek, Rachel's heart rate slowed, her mind sharp and focused. She could hear the engines grow closer. But in her world, everything moved in slow motion. The cartel was walking right into their trap. Rachel's lips curled into a slight smile as the first vehicle passed by her team's position, triggering the ambush. Without warning, all hell broke loose. The cartel convoy was hit from all sides, blindsided by a series of explosive charges that lit up the streets in blinding flashes of light and dust. Rachel's team sprang into action, using the chaos to tear through the cartel security with deadly efficiency. The cartel had prepared for a fight, but they hadn't prepared for a battle like this. The cartel's enforcers, hardened killers in their own right, were suddenly thrown into a whirlwind of precision attacks that they couldn't anticipate. Rachel led the charge, her movements fluid, controlled, and devastating. She darted from cover to cover, disarming cartel guards with lethal strikes, each movement purposeful, each decision calculated, every second, every inch of ground gained was a step closer to taking down the heart of the operation. The sound of gunfire echoed in the streets. But Rachel was a ghost, moving through the shadows, her mind always 3 steps ahead. Joe, Martinez, and the rest of the team took out key members of the cartel's convoy, forcing their enemies to react in desperation. Within minutes, Rachel's team had captured several high-ranking cartel members, exposing critical parts of the operation. Rachel's leadership was unshakable. She moved with the calm, controlled demeanor of someone who had been in far worse situations, but who knew the stakes were higher than ever. Yet, as the dust began to settle, Rachel's focus never wavered. She knew this wasn't over. The battle may have been won, but the war was just beginning. The cartel was ruthless, and even though they had suffered a major blow, they would not go down without a fight. Rachel's heart still pounded, but it wasn't from the adrenaline of the battle. It was from the knowledge that the real fight was yet to come. The town of Shadow Creek had just become ground zero in a larger war, and Rachel Morrison had made it clear. She wasn't going to stop until every last trace of corruption was burned away. The air was thick with tension as Rachel stood at the edge of Shadow Creek, watching the approaching convoy. The sound of powerful engines rumbled in the distance, signaling the arrival of the surgeon, the cartel boss who had been pulling the strings behind the chaos in this small desert town. Rachel knew this man was more than just another gangster. He was a seasoned, ruthless operator, someone who had survived countless battles and outsmarted enemies for years. The surgeon wasn't here for a quick strike. He was here to oversee the final stages of a large-scale operation. Rachel's gut told her that this would be the showdown they had been building up to. As the convoy rolled into town, Rachel's senses went into overdrive. Every part of her military training was activated. She wasn't just preparing for a fight. She was preparing to finish this once and for all. The streets of Shadow Creek were eerily quiet. But Rachel knew the surgeon's arrival would change that. The final confrontation was inevitable. The surgeon's black SUV rolled to a stop in front of the community center, his imposing figure stepping out of the vehicle with the calm confidence of someone who believed he was untouchable. Rachel had been waiting for this moment, the moment where she would confront the mastermind behind everything that had plagued this town, the moment where she would take back control. Without a word, Rachel approached, her movements precise and calculated. The surgeon noticed her immediately, recognizing the former Navy SEAL for who she was. There was a brief moment of silence before he broke into a cold smile. "You're a brave woman, Commander," he sneered, "but you're about to learn that no one takes down the cartel." Rachel's response was calm, but deadly. "You're wrong. This town isn't yours to take, and you're not leaving it alive." The surgeon's smile faded as the two warriors sized each other up. Rachel had faced countless enemies in her career, but this was different. The surgeon wasn't just a criminal. He was a professional, a man who had survived in the shadows by staying one step ahead. But Rachel had something he didn't. She had nothing left to lose, and she was willing to go to any lengths to protect the people of Shadow Creek. The fight started quickly. The surgeon, fast and ruthless, swung first, his movements sharp and precise. He wasn't just a cartel boss. He was a trained fighter. Each punch was calculated, each move deadly. But Rachel had trained for years to handle men like him. She had faced opponents who underestimated her, only to watch them fall. With every strike, Rachel's SEAL training took over. She knew how to move, how to anticipate her enemy's next move before they did. She used his aggression against him, countering each of his attacks with swift, devastating precision. The surgeon's arrogance became his undoing as Rachel dismantled his defenses piece by piece. She forced him to the edge, his breath coming in ragged gasps as he realized that she wasn't just another enemy to overpower. Rachel's eyes were cold, her every motion deliberate. She knew exactly how to exploit his weaknesses, his overconfidence, and his desperation. The surgeon fought like a man who thought he could win. But Rachel knew better. She had trained for moments like this, where everything came down to strategy, focus, and ruthlessness. Finally, with one fluid motion, Rachel ended the fight. The surgeon, exhausted and on the verge of collapse, attempted one last attack, but Rachel was faster. She drove her knee into his chest, taking him down with a force that left him gasping for breath. His reign of terror had come to an end. With the surgeon on the ground, Rachel stood over him, her breath steady, her resolve unshaken. "This is where your empire ends," she said quietly, her voice filled with the weight of years spent in the shadows. "Shadow Creek is no longer your playground. You and your cartel have lost." The surgeon's face twisted with rage as he struggled to speak. But the words came out hollow, the power draining from him with every passing second. Rachel knew this was more than just about ending one man. This was a message to the entire cartel network. Shadow Creek would no longer be a part of their criminal empire. They would learn that no matter how powerful they thought they were, they couldn't just take over a town protected by someone like Rachel Morrison. With a final glance at the defeated surgeon, Rachel turned and walked away. Shadow Creek was free once again. But the battle had just begun. Rachel knew this was only the first of many confrontations to come. But as she looked out over the desert landscape, the rising sun casting its golden light across the town, she felt a rare sense of peace. For the first time in a long time, she had reclaimed control. Shadow Creek was safe, and the message was clear. No one was untouchable, not even the surgeon. But Rachel's work wasn't done. The cartels had learned a hard lesson today, but Rachel knew there would be more to fight for. As long as there were shadows, there would be more work for the likes of her to do, and she would be ready. As the dust settles over Shadow Creek, the town begins to rebuild. The once feared cartel's grip has been broken, and the corrupt officials who aided them are now facing justice. The streets, once filled with fear and tension, are now filled with the sound of construction and hope. The people of Shadow Creek are reclaiming their town, piece by piece. As Rachel's actions have changed the course of their lives forever, Rachel stands at the edge of the town, watching as the community begins to come together again. Families who had lost loved ones to the cartel's brutality are now starting to heal, their homes slowly being rebuilt, and their lives starting to piece back together. The victory feels sweet. But Rachel knows it's not the end. This mission was just the first step in a much larger war. As she drives away from Shadow Creek, her mind is already shifting to the future. The cartels might have been defeated here, but Rachel knows they are not gone. They are everywhere, lurking in the shadows, and they won't rest until they've rebuilt their operations. Rachel has made a promise to every victim, every family affected by the cartels, and she intends to keep it, one town at a time, one cartel at a time. She will continue to fight. Her mission isn't over. It's just begun. If you enjoyed this action-packed episode, make sure to subscribe to the channel. More high-stakes missions, intense combat, and thrilling moments are on the horizon. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Stay tuned.